Military aircraft left yesterday to Nigeria to collect the remains of the remaining South Africans who were killed when a church building collapsed in Lagos in September of last year. 85 South Africans were killed in the incident. Up until now, only 74 bodies have been positively identified and brought back to the country. It's still unclear how many of the remaining 11 bodies will be repatriated.
Nearly 6 months on, and the families of some of the victims are yet to find closure. It's been a long and agonizing wait for some of those whose loved ones perished in that tragedy in Lagos last year. While the latest news might bring hope of finally closing that chapter, might not be for everyone, as it's not yet clear whether all or some of the bodies will be coming home on Thursday.
We should also recall that this is not a process that is led by the South African government. All the verification and the testing is done by the Nigerian authorities. Ours is to provide the necessary information in order to ensure that that process is finally concluded.
85 South Africans were killed in the building collapse in September last year. 74 bodies were brought back home 2 months later. Since then, authorities have been working to identify the rest. The injured have all been discharged from hospitals and have been reunited with their families. The Nigerian authorities have opened an inquest into the tragedy.
Our Consular General, who's based in Lagos, has a watching brief so that we can be able to be put abreast of the developments of that inquest taking place there.
The plane is likely to touch down at Waterkloof Air Force Base early Thursday morning. Jamila, SABC News, Pretoria.
Now, for the latest, we have in the studio with us this morning the Acting Chief Executive Officer of Government's Communication and Information Systems, Phumla Williams. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Eben.
We've pretty much seen an update. Now, our team is there at the moment. What sort of process are they involved with today and the next couple of days? And then can you maybe give us an update on the latest developments?
Thank you very much. I think it's been a very difficult 4 months for us as government, as a team that has been following the story, but also importantly for the families themselves. I think it's been a very most difficult Christmas for them. But yes, coming to the briefing that the minister gave yesterday, which is more or less the latest as we have it, and a military aircraft has been dispatched based on the brief that was given to us by the Nigerian that we can come over. They have left to go and collect the positively identified bodies. But unfortunately, as you will note in our briefing, we were not able to say how many are coming and who are coming. And a part of that is because the verification and the finalization and a proper briefing is only going to be happening sometime today. But we have interacted with the families to inform them that we have dispatched this plane to collect the remains, but unfortunately we still do not know. But we've made an assurance to them that as soon as we get the list, knowing which provinces will be coming from and where are the stage of the verification from the laboratory, we will communicate with them almost immediately. In fact, I should say, speaking here, that the information is not going to be communicated to them via the media. No. We will communicate directly to the families, and most probably the media will be the last to know, because I think it is only fair for the families not to hear it from yourselves.
Yeah, it's been a very difficult couple of months, 4 or 5 months for the families, and this is such a deeply personal issue that affects a family so deeply and over a long period of time. I want to talk quickly, without politicizing it, about what has happened on this day and then the months that followed on. Has it had any effect on the relationship between South Africa and Nigeria?
I think probably if I am to say that we have had a wonderful relationship in this whole period of 4 months, to be exact, because Eben, you will recall that even transporting back the injured, I don't think we would have done it on our own. It was done within 3 weeks after the stabilizing of those victims. It was done in consultation with the Nigerian authorities. The 74, which are at the time when it was happening, I was there. I can confirm that we were interacting with the Nigerians throughout the process of verifying and consolidating. You will recall, even at that time, there was a whole hype with the media saying it's 54, and we kept saying, let's wait until we finalize. That finalization, which is quite a laborious exercise, was done with the Nigerian assisting us, and we were able to confirm the 74. The 11 that was outstanding, yes, we could agree with the Nigerians, because at that time there was no positive results from the laboratory. And I think we've always committed to these families that we will not traumatize them twice by bringing bodies that are not positively identified. At that time, we agreed with them that the 11 could not be positively identified. But I think we were assured that it was not all lost. They can still do further tests, and that's the result that has led us to today that we are going to collect.
These tests were done at the CSIR in Stellenbosch?
Yes, they were done in South Africa.
Tell us quickly about the level of cooperation that you're having with the Nigerian government with regards to the inquest, if there is any input that is needed or desired from South Africa.
I don't think we are involved in that inquest, but safe to say that we are also waiting patiently for the outcome of that inquest, because I think as a South African government, we have an interest. Our citizens perished in that building, and I think we have an interest. We have always said that we will cooperate with the Nigerians should we be required to get involved, but we are waiting for the outcome of that inquest. And I think once that inquest comes, I think we owe it to the families really to know what really happened and what killed their loved ones.
How do you view Pastor TB Joshua within this whole process? There's been promises the last couple of months of him coming to South Africa to speak to the families. Yes, there have been members of the church that have done sort of conciliatory work. But how do you view TB Joshua within this process? And also, you know, the kind of arguments that's been put forward about planes that made the building collapse and all these kinds of things?
I think it would be unfair of us to be passing judgment on a church. Our focus is to bring back the South Africans that perished in that building. The South Africans that went to that church, they are members of that church. Yes, an accident happened, and I think the church themselves are doing their bit in providing the counseling services to those families. But I think at this point, we would like to confine ourselves to assisting South Africans as a caring government. And it's at that point, I don't think we have views on any church, because I think the churches are providing their own programs within their communities.
In conclusion, we've seen more South Africans travelling there over the festive season, going to not only TB Joshua's church, but other churches in Nigeria and so forth. How do you advise South Africans travelling abroad for these kinds of scenarios? How do you advise them now? You know,
thank you very much, Eben, for that question, because I think what the lesson that we have learned in this exercise is that I think we do need to educate South Africans that I think we need to be accountable when we leave the borders of this country. Because you will recall at the beginning, I think a few days was wasted because we were unsure that they were South Africans. The Department of International Relations has a program online where if you are leaving South Africa, just spend a few minutes into that website, log in where you will be going and where we'll be. Because I think it makes the life very easy for us as government to be able to know which citizens are in what place. And especially when there's an accident like this, it would have been much quicker for ITECO to intervene through the embassy if we had known that there were South Africans there.
Well, I can say from our side, what we've seen, this was a political minefield that you guys worked through, and you've done, as government, done a fantastic job, not only in repatriating the body, but also not ruffling feathers, because it was such a difficult scenario that played out for everyone involved. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Eben.
That's Phumla Williams, who's the Acting Chief Executive Officer of GCIS, that's Government Communication and Information Systems here in South Africa. But let's have a quick look at your tweets. What are you talking about on Twitter with regards to this? Connie says this morning, thoughts and prayers with the families of the victims of the Nigerian collapse incidents. unbearable that the bodies are not back yet. Hashtag TB Joshua. Yes, it's been a difficult process, but you can understand it's a building that collapsed, and in this space, people remains and DNA had to be exhumed and looked at. At the last, remains of some 11 souls may be coming home 4 months later. I hope families may find some closure. That's from Bonesetter. And then Beyond X says, it turns Nigerian government is withholding repatriation of 11 South African corpses from TB Joshua, now 8 months. No, it's 5 months, in exchange for weapons to fight Boko Haram. Really? I think that Beyond X, that's a little bit beyond me, to be honest. Sam says, what is South Africa's stance on representing their bereaved members of the TB Joshua tragedy? I would think they can act on behalf of them. If I am. And then, as it says, South Africa's taxpayers are forking out the money for the planes and DNA testing. Why not send the bill to TB Joshua? Well, there are South Africans that perished in this building collapse, and we look after our own in South Africa. Now, I'm joined by Mr. Bally Chuene, who's the spokesperson for the Synagogue Church of All Nations here in South Africa. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, sir.
A little bit of difficulty in the traffic you had this morning?
Yes, indeed.
It's Johannesburg. We deal with that. We accept it in our stride and we move on.
Yeah.
I've just had Phumla Williams with us, who says that this process is now reaching the final stages. Mm-hmm. As the church, how do you view this, and what would you like to see happen with the remains that needs to be repatriated within the next week or two?
I mean, let me first start by saying that really what the Nigerian government has done to date in respect of assisting in the DNA process, so that those particular bodies that could come to South Africa, we applaud them for the wonderful job they've done. Equally, the South African government, the tremendous role that they have played in ensuring that this particular issue, difficult as it is, I think both parties need to be applauded for the wonderful job done.
It's been a very difficult 5 months, 6 months, 5 months for everyone involved in this process. TB Joshua has been made out to be a very controversial figure in this whole process, almost as if somebody needed to be blamed for it. It was a tragedy. The question that all our viewers want to know is, TB Joshua said he's going to come to South Africa to come and deal with this on a very personal level. When do we see TB Joshua in South Africa?
You mean Prophet TB Joshua?
Yes.
Prophet TB Joshua has made an announcement, and that announcement stands. And the announcement was to the following effect, that yes, he has committed himself to coming to South Africa because he views this particular tragedy as is so serious, and as part of him ensuring that, he builds a very cohesive relationship with the South Africans and support them. He wants to be able to come here. Now, we want first to wait for the repatriation to finish. We are in the last, zone of this particular repatriation. After that, then the process of coming to South Africa will start.
What about the incident itself that happened? Terrorism was to blame. It was the devil's work. Where does the church stand on the reasons for the tragedy that happened?
I think the church has always maintained, and that is the case, that this particular collapse really is a sabotage. And as a matter of interest, as we speak right now, the equivalent of the Human Rights Association in Nigeria, together with the other associations of public standing in Nigeria, they are in the process of petitioning the Nigerian government because they say that there is a particular report. That report gives details as to exactly what happened in respect of the sabotage. Now, that particular process will take its own course. But it also just demonstrates and supports the view that we've been saying. And it's a very firm view that what has transpired here is a sabotage. Yes, the corona inquest is, on hold at the moment. We are hoping that, in due course, after all the teething problems are over, we can get back to go through that particular process.
What has been the difficulty with your prophet appearing before the commission?
I think, again, we have articulated this particular view before. The prophet has never had a problem in appearing. Briefly, to take you through what transpired at first, he wasn't served with the necessary papers. Subsequently, he was served with papers after the government followed the necessary process. Now, what the church and the prophet have done basically is to bring another application to be able to say, Corona, you're now getting into the realm of issues that are completely irrelevant for the purposes of why, by law, why the Corona is established and what it seeks to do. So we basically want to clarify so that you get the shaft out and deal with the real pertinent issues as to what really transpired as far as this collapse is concerned.
Tell us about the process of taking families to Nigeria, bereaved family members and so forth that we've seen. How has that process proceeded over the last few months? I
think, the best witnesses in this particular respect are the families themselves. Their testimonies of their experience from a spiritual perspective when they visited the church and how they are in the process of emotionally healing. They have articulated it very well themselves to say they are very happy with what the church has done. The church has been in constant communication with them throughout this particular process, and we will remain with all the families until all of them have been repatriated home.
We've got different numbers flying around at the moment, but the church has made some financial reparation to the bereaved families. Can you give us a bit of detail on that?
Well, I think the first amount that was made available, if you're talking purely monetary specifically, was the 50,000 that went through the burial services. But that was actually preceded by an ordinate amount of money that went through to support the families from a variety of perspectives. I mean, paying the rental, paying the bond, paying the school fees. And in as far as the school fees, we are right now in that particular process of paying those particular school fees to make sure that, the children do not get disadvantaged in any way.
Well, I thank you for coming through to us and talking to us about this. It's been a very long, arduous process, and finally, it seems like we are getting to the end of the line for these families. What kind of time frame are you hoping for the repatriating of the last last 11 bodies?
Well, that particular aspect really is left to government, that is respectively the Nigerian government and South African government. I think they've been handled the process very well. Let's leave that to them. At the church, we really just play a supportive role in that respect.
I thank you for coming today. That's the Synagogue Church of All Nations spokesperson, Mr. Bally Chuene, who joined us live after Phumla Williams gave us the official scenarios a little bit earlier. I thank you once again.
Thank you very much, sir.